rules have changed. There's a fine line between right and wrong. And somewhere in the shadows, they send us in to find it.
On your feet, soldier! We are leaving! The L85a2, the service rifle of the United Kingdom. Today, we're going to be talking about this rifle in particular, as well as a little bit of history on the SA-80 family of weapon system. So with that, get your cup of coffee, boil your tea, and let's get into it. So first things first, how do we have our hands on an L85a2? England never exported these, they are exceedingly rare, and there's only a handful of A1s in the United States. Well, for those keen eye of you would have noticed a few differences between this, and that is because this is actually a custom build of mine. I am not H&K, I'm not a gunsmith, but I always wanted this rifle. It's actually the first rifle that I ever shot. So what is this? This is a collection of around about 60 to 70% original parts that I've acquired over the years, and I engineered the internals. We're going to get into more detail on how I did that further in the video. But this is a semi-automatic replica or clone of an L85a2, and I really wanted something to do a video on it. The truth is, the L85 and the SA-80 family get a lot of hate. For me, it's not only the nostalgia of the firearm, but I think a fantastic addition to the channel, and I just think it looks absolutely awesome and one of the coolest looking bullpup rifles out there. So before we start talking more about how I went around doing this build, how it actually works, let's talk a little bit about the history of the SA-80 and L85 family of rifles so we can understand why and how Britain ended up with something like this. So the L85 family of rifles, or the SA-80 family story, really starts back during the Second World War. After the war ended, we realized that engagements were happening at 300 meters and in. There was no need for a full-size battle cartridge. So the European powers, England included, opted for an intermediate rifle cartridge. This was similar to the 5.56 round. But America didn't want that, and America, leading NATO at the time, everyone adopted the SLR with the larger 7.62 or 308 rounds. But Britain still wanted their bullpup, and Britain actually had a bullpup ready post-war. It was called the EM1 rifle. Now the EM1 was ahead of its time. It fired an intermediate cartridge, it actually had an optical sight, and manuals were issued, and it was actually officially adopted for a few months. But that fell through due to America wanting to go with a full-powered cartridge, and so we ended up with the SLR. Britain held on to that though, and they developed I think it was the XM80 program, or the predecessor to the SA-80 program, with the EM2. And then we arrive at the Belgian trials where the 5.56 was adopted, and England goes back to its idea of a bullpup. And this is where the SA-80 family comes in. Now at the time, England was going through a lot of political strife, and the manufacturing capabilities of the UK and industrial decline was a huge part of the 1970s and 80s, and that really affected the rifle. So when the rifle was developed, Britain wanted a bullpup, knowing it had shorter engagement distances, and more importantly for urban combat and vehicle combat. A bullpup makes sense in urban and vehicle operations, which is where warfare was going, especially during the Cold War. So we arrive in the 1980s, and the SA-80 series of weapons is getting developed. The A1 is getting developed, And through a lot of political strife, lying, layoffs at the manufacturing facility, and low morale, the L85A1 was not a good rifle. It had a lot of potential, but the truth is, it was designed by people who often at Enfield never even shot a rifle before, so it had some very apparent, almost common sense problems to the average shooter. And when the A1 was adopted, the material specifications weren't good, it wasn't manufactured to a good specification, and a lot reflected that. It was issued with a SUSAT optic, which was ahead of its time for the 1980s, but it left a lot to be desired. And the A1 entered service during the Gulf War, Northern Ireland and the Gulf War, and it was not at all good. There's a myriad of problems, the biggest ones being the magazine catch, having not being guarded, magazines falling out, the magazines not being good, old Armalite magazines and Radway Green magazines, as well as constant jamming, failure to extract, failure to feed, things of that nature. So that reputation stayed with this weapon system, and what we have is Britain had to fix a problem. These reports got leaked, and England had to do something about it. Well, BAE Systems actually bought Heckler & Koch in Germany. So what happened was they sent the L85A1, and the British government simply said, just fix it, don't do anything special, just fix it. And this is where the story gets misunderstood. All HK did was make a few minor changes and essentially make the rifle to the specification it was meant to be made at. During the original trials of the A1, the British government actually lied, and they changed the specification just to make the A1 look better and for it to pass the trials, which is not uncommon to how the Bren gun was adopted. In British weapon politics, once England wants a gun, they kind of bend the rules in order to get it. So basically, HK takes a gun, they fix it, and they changed a few things, and those few things made a big difference. The first thing is the magazine catch. They actually guarded it. So the original one wasn't guarded, it would fall out when it presses up against your kit. HK fixed that, they put a guard on it. HK also widened the ejection port, the iconic ejection port handle here, the cocking handle, teardrop shaped, to actually push those cartridges out of the way, which is causing most of the jams on the A1. They also changed spring specifications, and they actually cut into the chamber to allow better feeding and extraction. And then you have the A2 rifle. And the A2 rifle is what you see here today, or this clone of the A2 rifle. Again, guys, this is a semi-automatic, but the internals are exactly the same. The L85 series of rifle, SA80, is based on the Armalite AR-180 rifle. And this has the exact same working parts. So we'll get into that a little bit as we go through the breakdown. But the L85A2 arrives in service. What we see here is a 2013-2018 rifle. And this is an L85A2 with a Daniel Defense rail system, grip pod, a LLM-01, the Afghanistan Surefire 4-prong, the riser mount with an Elcan OS4, not a Spectre. And so we arrive here. So the L85A2 is a really good rifle, guys. In fact, the mean rounds between failures, which is how weapons reliability is tested, the L85A2 made it up to 31,000 rounds until a failure, with an average of 25,000. Now, the US Army's new SIG program has a requirement of 15,000, and the M4 actually made it up to 18,000. So this is actually twice as reliable, more statistically, than the M4 platform. And I know that a lot of you are shocked at that, but all I'm doing is repeating the data, guys. So it's a reliable, good, serviceable weapon. And I hope you'll watch this video, and it will change a lot of your opinions about this weapon system. Now, again, this is not a HK-made L85A2, but it's pretty bloody close. It has the same operating system and a lot of original parts. So with that said, we took it out onto the range. You guys saw the intro. I have around about 800 rounds through this rifle, and because, again, I engineered this myself, there's little problems here and there, but for the most part, they've been worked out now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go through and talk first about the shooting experience of this particular rifle. We'll talk a little bit about the optic, what it's like to shoot, the manual of arms, and then we'll get into every single component, a full breakdown, and what this holds for the channel future. So with that, let's get started. Let's go back to the range and talk about how she shoots. So when it comes to shooting this rifle, one thing in particular is obviously it is a bullpup configuration, meaning that all the weight is in the back, the trigger is in front of the fire control group. And what I like about this weapon system is that it almost sits back in your shoulder. It's very easy to either shoot one-handed or do long patrols and look down the optic. It's also very good for CQB. So when it comes to shooting, I feel that you can very quickly acquire targets with it. Again, guys, it feels very instinctual. It feels like very much a point and shoot type firearm. And again, with that bullpup configuration, you get that barrel. This is a 20-inch barrel in a package that is actually shorter than an M4 rifle. So when we brought out on the range, we had a little bit of issues. The first issue that I've been working with is the magazines. It doesn't like some magazines for whatever reason. For those of you that like to critique stuff, I challenge you to make a firearm. People don't understand the amount of force and energy involved. I am not a gunsmith. I am a hobbyist and pretty much made this in my garage. So I'm very happy with how it came out. And again, I've got 800 rounds through it and we've worked out the magazine issues. One of them was the mag catch, just had to file down a little bit of material. But guys, there's a lot of energy going on there. But once we fix those mag issues, I also found that with the springs, she likes 28 rounds, doesn't like a full 30 magazine, but once she gets going, she strips through them fine. So the first drill that we did was the bill drill. This is as quickly, 6 rounds, 7 yards, as quickly as possible. And she did very well. I was happy with her. But the one thing about this rifle, and this is just my particular build, is the trigger. So the trigger is extremely heavy on this rifle. And I mean heavy. It is, I haven't measured it, but it almost feels like the weapon's unsafe. It is, again, an extremely heavy trigger. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of used to it. But it's really heavy. The reset's nice, but it's just extremely heavy. I mean, I would even argue it's up to 10 pounds. So it's something that I've got to fix and I've got to improve. What I believe is happening is that the connection bar is just rubbing on the inside of the receiver. Just something that I've got to engineer. Again, I'm not H&K. It is usable, but what it means is that with the bill drills, they are a little slower. Once I get the trigger dialed in, it'll be very quick because the real L85 has a very long, spongy reset. The reset on this is actually very, very nice. Because it essentially uses an AR trigger mechanism, the reset's very minimal. So I'm confident once I get that trigger down, I'll post another video and doing a very quick bill drill. But for now, as you can see, we fired 6 rounds pretty quickly and I'm very happy with that. The next firing drill was the one-shot reload, one-shot. Now, the manual of arms on the L85 is something unique, and if you've been handed one or if you've ever used one, you'll know that it is not like an AR-15 and it takes some getting used to. So if you're ever handed one of these guys, my advice would simply be, do not assume that you know. Please do your research. It is a privilege to get your hands on one of these. So if you are given them, ask someone who knows, because the L85 has a bolt release, and that's really key to running this rifle smoothly. So that was part of the reload, and that bolt release is key because when we insert a magazine, we have that bolt catch, and there's no reason to reach over or operate anything on the right side of the weapon. So there's no need to rack the charging handle, there's no need to use your bolt lock back. You can simply just press that bolt release and it's gonna, go. So with that, talk a little bit about the manual of arms so you guys can understand what I'm actually doing during a reload. So the manual of arms with the L85 starts when you're holding the rifle. Everything we do is flipped either 90 degrees like so, and we operate it with our left hand. The reason for that is we can visually inspect the chamber. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lock the bolt to the rear. I'm going to grab my hand. With my thumb, I'm going to push down on the bolt catch. That's going to lock that bolt open. I can now visually inspect the chamber. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my magazine, insert my magazine, and when I do that, I'm going to hit my bolt release, like so. So as you can see, it's a very smooth operation. I reach over, I can grab a magazine and simply insert and load around. So there's the manual of arms on the L85. Some other notes is the magwell was designed in the 1980s, guys. So this magwell is not very flared. This is an original magwell, a part that I was very happy to source. And it's stamped sheet metal. It's not milled out of a solid piece of aluminium like an AR-15. So getting that mag in there and aligning it correctly takes a lot of training. And that's something that I'm gonna have to get used to again, is working that system. And again, guys, with the L85 here, what I find comes in is you kink it, you grab your magazine and you reload like this, insert that magazine and then hit your bolt catch right there. But again, I just feel that having it here, coming in, and then getting that line up is very difficult. Working in that box that we talk about when we do reloads is definitely very applicable to this weapon system. So with that said, my quickest reload was around about, I think 3.2 seconds. And some of them, if you don't get the draw and the insertion correct, it can be pretty difficult. The mag catch is about a little bit more stiffer than an AR-15. The way we actuate it is it's a single lever type, so you press down and it kind of lifts up. And what that means is you have to get the right amount of pressure to press down on that to exit that magazine. It's not like an AR where you can just use your thumb and flick while reaching for a magazine. With the L85, what you have to do is you have to fire, release that, physically release that magazine, and then grab for one. And that's going to add time. So just little things to consider with this weapon system. But again, guys, it's another reason I love it. It's unique. These simply do not exist in civilian hands in the United States. So I'm very privileged to be able to have one. Again, a clone, a replica, I'm not quite sure what to call it, but it looks the part, it operates exactly the same, fires the same caliber, and I'm very happy with it. It even has the exact same stripped down part components and operating system. So let's talk a little bit more about the shooting. So we did a 25-yard zero with her, and she shot very well. We were able to get probably one MOA groupings once we got her all dialed in, and she's kept zero, which I'm very happy with. Again, guys, I challenge you to engineer a firearm aligning the barrel to the receiver and the rail to the second rail to the optic. It is challenging, so we're going to bring her out and do another video of some long range and see how she does. But at the end of the day, I'm looking for something to have on the channel, enjoy, have my friends shoot, something unique to bring to events and competitions. I'm not necessarily looking for absolute pristine, performance. I've never gone to engineering school. I've never gone to gunsmithing school. This is simply me doing this, in my free time as a hobbyist with the minimal tools that I have available. So moving on from that, let's shooting wise, again, the trigger is the biggest problem on this. It is extremely heavy, but I am going to fix that. But everything else, the manual of arms is familiar to me. The first time I shot this rifle was in the cadet force, and it just brings back memories. I remember being handed that bullpup. I remember walking into the armory and seeing them all in the black cages, and yeah, it was just fantastic. So really happy with her. This is definitely my favorite loadout with her. So let's talk about the actual build, some differences between the real rifle and this one, and go through every single part for you guys and enthusiasts to enjoy. But before we do that, guys, I hope that gave you a little bit of appreciation for the manual of arms. The videos online about this rifle are either museum curators or people who don't quite understand the weapon system or know what they're doing. There's very little. I wish the British Army would allow cameras, because I'd love some active British guys to do some real, my knowledge on this, and I have no operational experience with it, it is minimal. So I hope that I'm giving you guys an honest review of the weapon system that you're issued. Obviously the A3 came out, but you know, I hope I'm doing you guys justice, because I feel like the videos online don't do it justice. So we're here to give the A2 the love it deserves. So with that, let's go through the breakdown of the rifle and talk about the parts and components on this build. Okay, so starting off, the first thing is there are some differences between this and the live rifle, and they're cosmetic. So when I did this build, my basic philosophy was I wanted it to operate safely. Having an L85a2 is cool, they don't exist, but my number one priority is safety. And that was really important. So there's going to be little things on this rifle that don't look right because of safety, and I'll talk through why that is now. So the first cosmetic differences is the gas block is going to be the biggest one that people are pointing out. So the L85 actually has a big square gas block where the front sight, iron sight goes. This one is an untouched gas block. The reason for that is, guys, when you weld anything onto metal, you can risk warping it. I'm not a professional welder. I had to learn welding for this project, very basic stuff. The barrel gas system chamber is a very expensive part, and I didn't want to risk welding on a gas block onto here and having it warp. And then, you know, for those of you who don't know, that the gas holes are extremely tiny in gas blocks, and any sort of warping could put it at risk. Now, in the future, I might mill one and then have a professional welder on, maybe at the base. But for now, guys, this is more of an A3 gas block. It does not have the big squarey type. But again, that was, like, I needed it to run. That's almost a final cosmetic addition to this rifle. But having something that ran was way more important than me than having a gas block. God forbid I screwed that up. If I welded or damaged any of that, the entire build would become a paperweight. And that to me just wasn't worth it. The other big difference is you're going to see a reinforcement tab here. The receiver is thin sheet metal, and again, I wanted something really robust. Guys, I want to be able to use this. That was really important. I want to run it hard, use it hard, give it to my friends, throw it around for videos. I didn't want another museum piece. If I wanted a showpiece, I would just buy an airsoft gun. I wanted a real one that I could use. So I welded reinforcement tabs there as well. You'll also notice a small gap in between the receiver. That was because, for safety reasons, I wanted a shroud around the internals of the firearm. Again, on a bullpup, your face is right where that explosion happens. And in order to fit in that protective shroud, it kind of bulged out that stamped receiver a little bit. And it's just, you know, one of those things. I could weld an internal rail just to seal that up, which I might, but it's just a small cosmetic difference. The other thing you're going to mention, notice, is the receiver pin is moved upward. These two pins are welded over, and what else? That is really it. Oh, so on here, the bolt catch was moved over for operational purposes, a little cut in the handguard, and then the fire selector is completely fake and cosmetic. We cannot have automatic weapons. This is purely semi-automatic. I did not want to connect that linkage to anything, again, just for that peace of mind. So apart from that, those are the big differences. Some of you guys might ask about the gap in the rail here. This proprietary rail goes on, this Reaver rail goes onto a proprietary 18mm NATO rail where the SUSAT goes. This gap here is on the real weapon. So that is something that does exist. To get a proper cheek well, you do have to have that optic raised up. If it was level, it would be really awkward. But right here, that cheek weld is absolutely perfect. So there you have it, guys. Those are the little cosmetic differences with my rifle compared to a real one. The biggest thing for me was it shoots 5.56. It is safe. It is reliable. And it has the exact same manual of arms. And that's something that's really important, was I wanted the ability to actually lock this back, use the bolt catch, And I wanted that. You know, a lot of guys that make these are either 2.2 or they don't have all those features. And I was able to engineer the lock back, which any of you that have real experience with the HK ones, if you look in the fire control group, it's this clockwork, you know, extremely complex piece of machinery. Again, I don't have access to super fancy machines, so I had to make do with what I could. And again, for a first attempt, I'm bloody happy with it. So minus the inaccuracies, guys, if you've served with this rifle, I really want to hear your opinions. So yeah, let me know what you think. So let's break down the actual components on the rifle. First thing is anything that equates to the silhouette of this rifle is pretty much a real component, which I think adds to its realism, especially when you step even like a foot away from it. It's very hard to tell the difference. The biggest thing being this gas block. So let's go from the top down to the stock and go through all of these components. So to start up here, we have the Surefire FH SA80 SA. Now this is a 4-prong flash hider that can fit a suppressor, and this was issued for troops in Afghanistan to mitigate muzzle flash essentially. It's a very, very rare item. Coming down from it, we actually have an adapter. This only fits onto a proprietary SA80 barrel. This is essentially an AR-15 barrel, so I actually had to have an adapter machined just for this. What's fascinating is the threads don't go in, they actually come all the way up. It's a very unique thread design. So to get this onto this barrel, I had to have that custom machined and made. Very happy with that. Coming down, we have a LLM-01 unit. This is an airsoft one. If you guys know anyone that's selling one, I am looking for a real one of these. And this is a German laser light module, features a visible floodlight, an IR laser, and a visible laser. And these were very common on UK firearms. You'll see them in tons of pictures, and I think just adds that extra bit of vibe, if you will. Coming down from there, we've got the grip pod, and this is again another standard Afghanistan upgrade. It's a bipod, useless for a firefight, but it's really useful if you're having chow or something and you want to just put your rifle on the floor. Coming over to the rail now, this is a real L85 rail. This was made by Knight's Armament as a proprietary feature to replace the plastic handguards, again in Afghanistan, to help with the use of attachments. It's a very good rail, and they actually you know, made these pretty bloody quickly. It's very impressive. What's very cool about this build is the gas system and the rail. Actually, this flips up and it's in the exact same position as the real rifle. Again, just another feature that when it comes to field stripping and maintenance, just adds that realism that it does maintain like the real firearm. Coming down from the rail, we have let's start with the barrel. So the barrel and the gas system and the bolt is actually from a AR-180 and a BRN-180. So this was really important to me, guys. I wanted something that was safe, reliable, and replaceable. Again, I plan to shoot this very hard. I plan to take it apart and maintain it. So if anything breaks, the fact that I can go online and order it, it's just a huge peace of mind. And again, it's my fun toy, and I'm really happy that I can break something or something can go wrong and I can replace a barrel very easily. The problem with unique firearms sometimes is you can't replace them, so you're reluctant to shoot them. This one I can run all day. So the barrel is chambered, is 5.56, 1-in-7 twist. The gas system is a gas piston system, so it's the exact same on a L85. Remember, the AR-180 is what the L85 is based on, and this has the exact same system, to the point that when we get to the bolt, I'll explain something very cool. So coming down to the grip is real, the trigger is real, the trigger guard is real. The receiver is actually, funny enough, off of an airsoft gun. So it's off of a WE airsoft gun with many reinforcements on the inside. And that, I don't have access to stamping machinery, so that was my easiest bet to go. The magazine well is a real magazine well. It is not an airsoft one. Butt plate's real. Ejection port cover's real. Ejection port handle's real. The fire selectors are real. Magazine's real. Magazine, all this little assembly is all original parts also. So coming into the inside of the rifle, the actual stick on the receiver. All the engravings you see I had done. I got a HK back here, got the stock number, UK L85 designations, and that just really adds to the realism. Again, when you hold this rifle, looking down, seeing those markings just really adds to it. So coming off from that, fire select is real also. We've got the internals, so again, the bolt barrel is AR-180. The bolt is AR-180 also. The spring system guide rails are BRN-180. And again, springs are one of those parts, guys, that you don't realize are so essential, but you need to be able to replace them. The fire control group is all AR-15 fire control components, and then I had to engineer, again, that bolt hold open device. I had to engineer the connection rod, the linkage mechanisms, the safety mechanisms, the hold opens and the releases, and that's all made and machined out of 4041 firearm steel. The charging handle is real. It's a real L85 teardrop charging handle. One of the problems that I had while building this was scraping on the inside of the internal receiver. So I actually had to cut the original charging handle, weld it to a AR-180 charging handle so you wouldn't get that interference. And now she runs beautifully. And that teardrop is really that iconic look to this rifle. Coming off from that, we've got the Weaver rail, the mount rail on here, that's original, and then attached to it is an original riser mount with a real OS4. It's not an Elcan, it's a British OS4 sight made by Spectre. Basically what happened was the British used the ACOG in Afghanistan. They loved it. They loved the reticle, and they wanted an ACOG, but they loved the field of view and the reticle, but they didn't like the price that Trigicon would give them, so they go to Spectre Canada. I'm sure something with the Commonwealth had to do with that. And they said, hey, Spectre, can you give us your Elcan, but without the throw lever? You'll notice there's no throw lever. So it's a fixed 4 magnification and a ACOG reticle. And that's how you get the OS4. Now, this is an early OS4. I hear that a lot of the British Army are changing to a crosshairs, so those are out there as well. But this one has the ACOG reticle, and I absolutely love it. It is a cherry on top. I was going to originally settle for a Spectre DR, but the fact that I got an OS4 just makes it just adds to it. It really does. Shouldering this rifle and then looking through the legit optic is just one of those things. It just So there you have it, guys. There's the build. Shot well. I really hope you enjoyed this. You are going to see this featured on the channel very often. It's a very special thing, guys, and you know, I've been meeting a few of you guys in person. I want to thank you for coming up and saying hi. It's been really, really awesome. Seeing the channel grow and the community has been incredible. So if you ever see me at the range and I've got this, you know, I'm a big believer in sharing experiences. Again, I don't know if it's a clone or a repro, you guys tell me, but it's the closest thing you're going to get to a real L85a2 in America. So if you see me with it, please come over, say hi, shake my hand, and I will most likely always offer to let you guys shoot it. So yeah, it's an absolute pleasure, guys. It's gotten great reviews from everyone who has shot it. The only complaints being that trigger, which again, I'm going to work and fix that. As a matter of fact, I will probably make another one of these. Sourcing the parts will be very difficult, but I will probably make another one. And as they say, the first time you make something is really the second time you make it. So lots of lessons learned. Again, guys, I'm not a welder, I'm not a gunsmith, I'm not H&K, but I did, you know, make this guy. I'm very happy with it. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. If you've served with this rifle, share your stories, you know. Again, I pointed out the little inaccuracies with it. Please give me some grace on that, guys, if you did serve with the rifle. Let me know what you guys think. And yeah, that's really it, guys. There's rumors of the UK, now that they've gone to the A3, selling these as part kits. From all of my internal sources in the Ministry of Defense, that is not going to happen. So it looks like we are not going to get A2 kits in the United States, which was just more of a motivation to source these parts while they're still out there. Once I make a second one, I've got a few guys that maybe talk about kits. I can't promise you guys anything. We'll have to see what the future holds. But for now, I really hope you guys enjoy this as much as I did. Again, let me know what your stories are. Let me know what you guys thought. I think it's very fitting to the Echo Mic channel. I don't know what I'm going to call it. I might call it the EM85 because the original, obviously, models were called the EM1 and 2. And EM also happens to be Echo Mic. So maybe we'll have to call it the EM85. Let me know what you guys think. Guys, as always, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your likes, your shares, your support. Growing this community has been incredible. Stay tuned, we have lots more to come. I'm so excited to reveal this to you guys, super proud of it. So let me know what you guys want to see in the future. We do have tons planned. We're going to continue with the military fieldcraft series. We had to do the cheesy intro for this one. It was just one of those special occasions where we had to do something a little bit more cinematic. But guys, whether it is an L85 or God forbid a FAMAS, get out there and train. I know it sounds cheesy, I know you've heard it 100 times, but whatever weapon system you have, you've got to train with it. I handed this to one of my friends who's very experienced, and the first thing he said was, wow, I pride myself on being knowledgeable with firearms, but firing this completely threw me off. So never assume that you know a firearm, always refer to a manual of arms, ask the owner of the firearm, and if you do own something unique, be proficient in it, be proud that you're proficient in it. So that's all I've got for you guys. I'll see you on the next one. Get out there and train, look after each other. That's all I've got for you.